His name was Marcus Vellin, once a quiet, observant child growing up in the roughest neighborhoods of Detroit. His early years were shaped by violence, poverty, and a broken home. His father, an alcoholic, was often in and out of jail. His mother worked 2 jobs and still couldn't keep the lights on half the time. By age 10, Marcus had already learned one hard lesson. Survival came first. At school, he was known for being silent but sharp. Teachers often described him as a kid who could have been anything if someone had just helped him. But no one did. Instead, the streets offered him guidance. By 13, he was running errands for a local gang. By 15, he was carrying weapons. And by 17, he committed his first murder, a rival gang member, shot execution style. That day, Marcus crossed a line he'd never return from. He quickly became one of the most feared figures in the criminal underworld. His name spread across cities like wildfire. Marcus wasn't just another gang member. He was calculated, methodical, and cold. His crimes escalated from street-level violence to orchestrating multi-million-dollar robberies. He ran weapons trafficking rings and allegedly had ties with international cartels. But what truly set him apart was his complete lack of remorse. He was known for leaving chilling messages at his crime scenes, sometimes carved into walls, other times sent anonymously to the media. His victims weren't just rivals. They included innocent bystanders, police officers, and anyone who crossed him. Over time, he earned the nickname the Ghost, because even though his crimes were brutal and frequent, authorities could never catch him. He disappeared after every act, leaving behind only fear and carnage, but no criminal runs forever. In 2022, after a 2-year-long international manhunt involving the FBI, Interpol, and multiple intelligence agencies, Marcus was finally caught. He was hiding in a remote village in Romania, living under a false identity. It wasn't a sting operation or an informant that brought him down. It was a single mistake. A digital footprint left behind after he contacted an old associate online. That one misstep cost him everything. When news of his capture broke, the entire country watched in shock. The media exploded with headlines. America's most dangerous criminal caught. Courtrooms overflowed with reporters, family members of victims, and curious citizens. During the trial, Marcus showed no emotion. He neither admitted nor denied anything. When the judge read out 27 life sentences without parole, one for each confirmed murder, he simply stared ahead, expressionless. But what followed next was even more shocking. Instead of sending him to a regular maximum security prison, the government decided Marcus Vellin would be sent to one of the harshest, most secretive prisons in the country, a place where escape was impossible and where the punishment was considered worse than death. And that's where this story truly begins. The courtroom fell into complete silence as Judge Elena Cartwright delivered the final verdict. Marcus Vellin, for your heinous crimes against humanity, this court sentences you to 27 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. You will be remanded to Blackridge Penitentiary, a federal prison reserved for the most dangerous individuals ever known to this nation. The announcement sent ripples across the nation. Blackridge was not just any prison. Located deep within the Rocky Mountains and carved directly into the stone, Blackridge was a maximum security fortress known for its brutal environment and psychological torment. It had no known escape attempts, because escape was considered unthinkable. Surrounded by electrified fences, motion detectors, armed watchtowers, and hidden landmines, the facility was designed to break even the most resilient criminals. Inside, the prison operated on a zero-tolerance policy. Inmates were confined to solitary cells for 23 hours a day. No social interaction, no communication with the outside world. Food was delivered through automated slots. The only human contact came in the form of heavily armored guards during transfers or medical emergencies. The lights in the cells never fully turned off. Day and night blended into a single, mind-numbing blur. The news of Marcus's transfer to Blackridge was met with both relief and shock. For the families of his victims, it was a small piece of justice. For the media, it was a gold mine. "The ghost goes to hell," read one newspaper headline. Another boldly claimed, "Even Blackridge may not be enough." News channels aired round-the-clock coverage, with retired FBI agents, psychologists, and prison consultants debating whether the punishment was too harsh or not harsh enough. Law enforcement officials applauded the decision. Many had lost colleagues during Marcus's reign of terror. His name had haunted task forces and interrogation rooms for years. For them, this was closure, finally putting a ghost to rest. Yet some questioned the ethics of sending anyone to a place like Blackridge. Human rights activists argued that Blackridge's methods bordered on torture. They pointed out the psychological damage caused by prolonged isolation, the lack of mental health support, and the extreme conditions. But those voices were quickly drowned out by a public that demanded retribution, not rehabilitation. As Marcus was flown to Blackridge under military escort, his wrists, ankles, and neck bound in reinforced restraints, he remained eerily calm. The media caught a brief glimpse of him being loaded into the armored transport. No fear, no resistance, just the same cold stare that had unnerved so many for so long. But even for a man like Marcus Vellin, Blackridge was a different world. A world designed not to hold him, but to crush him, mind and body. And while many believed he deserved everything coming his way, few could imagine what life inside Blackridge truly meant, because punishment was only just beginning. From the moment Marcus Vellin entered Blackridge Penitentiary, it was clear this was not a prison built for redemption. It was built to erase people. His cell was a 6x9 concrete box with a steel bed bolted to the floor and a toilet sink combination unit. No windows, no sunlight. The air smelled of iron and mildew. A dim fluorescent bulb flickered overhead, never turning off. There were no clocks, no calendars, just an endless loop of silence and cold. Every day began the same, not with a wake-up call, but with a mechanical hiss as food was shoved through a slot in the door. 3 tasteless meals a day, no contact, no conversation. The walls were thick enough to muffle screams from neighboring cells. The only proof of other human existence came from the occasional echo of metal clanking or distant shouts, cut off just as quickly as they started. Blackridge ran on precision. Every prisoner was monitored 24/7 through infrared cameras. Even in the privacy of their cells, every movement was tracked. There were no blind spots. Guards watched from sealed control rooms, never interacting unless absolutely necessary. The guards weren't just security, they were executioners of psychological warfare. Once a week, Marcus was escorted, shackled and surrounded by 5 guards, to a bleak, sterile shower room. His body was scanned before and after, ensuring no objects were smuggled. Even his toilet breaks were scheduled. Time was no longer his own. Autonomy, dignity, identity, all stripped away. But what truly broke prisoners wasn't just the isolation. It was the sound. Or rather, the lack of it. Blackridge was designed to deprive inmates of sensory stimulation. Silence became a weapon. Weeks passed without the sound of another voice. Occasionally, distorted white noise would be pumped into cells to disorient inmates, making sleep feel impossible. There were no books, no pencils, no distractions, just Marcus and his mind. In the first month, he remained cold and silent, his signature stare unshaken. But the human brain isn't built for isolation. Slowly, he began to talk to himself. He'd recite old conversations. Then he started pacing in circles, whispering numbers, obsessively counting steps. He'd try to remember every victim, every crime, every street he ever walked. It was the only thing he had left, memory. By the 3rd month, Marcus snapped. He began slamming his fists against the walls, screaming into the void, begging to be let out, even for just 5 minutes. He tore at his own clothes, scratched his skin, clawed at the steel door until his nails broke. But Blackridge never responded. There was no punishment for rebellion here, because the prison itself was the punishment. The man who once terrified an entire nation, the ghost who outwitted entire law enforcement agencies, was now reduced to a shell. No more threats, no more chilling smiles. Just a man, broken by silence. Blackridge had done what no bullet, cage, or courtroom ever could. It crushed Marcus Vellin without laying a single hand on him. And still, the worst was yet to come. Despite the mind-numbing routine and isolation, Marcus Vellin wasn't ready to surrender completely. Not yet. Somewhere beneath the surface of his unraveling mind, the criminal mastermind who once ran entire syndicates still twitched with ambition. And in Blackridge, where even the walls seemed to whisper madness, Marcus decided to fight back the only way he knew how, through manipulation, control, and calculated rebellion. His first move was subtle. Using the narrow slot in his cell door, Marcus began studying guard patterns. He memorized shift changes, noticed delays in food deliveries, and watched how long each guard lingered between cells. He couldn't see them, but he could hear just enough, and he listened like a predator. Then came the notes, small messages etched into the backs of meal trays with the edge of a plastic fork. Cryptic warnings, threats, promises of power. He was testing the system, baiting the guards, trying to make contact with other prisoners through the delivery cycle. Most trays went ignored or destroyed. But a few might have reached someone. Prison authorities responded swiftly. Cameras showed the tray markings. Marcus was immediately placed under deep isolation, a level beyond standard confinement. His lights were brightened. White noise was pumped into his cell at all hours. His meals were reduced to nutrient bricks, cold and flavorless. No more utensils, no more chances. Still, he persisted. During a rare transport to the infirmary after collapsing from dehydration, Marcus launched a sudden attack. He headbutted one of the guards, tried to grab a baton, and nearly broke free from formation. It was the first act of physical violence in the prison in nearly 4 years. The assault lasted 7 seconds. The retaliation lasted hours. He was beaten, tased, restrained, and locked in a zero-stim chamber, a pitch-black sensory deprivation room designed for psychological punishment. No sound, no light, no airflow except for the low hum of the ventilation. He stayed there for 5 days. When they pulled him out, Marcus had stopped speaking. The prison officials labeled him a high-level threat, one step below execution protocol. Even other inmates, whom he never saw but who heard whispers of his actions, began to view him as dangerous, even by Blackridge standards. Not out of fear, but frustration. His actions brought down heavier lockdown measures on all wings. Whatever fragile routines the prisoners had clung to were now gone. Rumors circulated. Some said Marcus tried to tunnel through the drain in his cell. Others claimed he manipulated a guard, trying to get access to a radio system. All unverified. But one thing was certain. Marcus Vellin had declared war on Blackridge, and Blackridge responded by crushing him further. No more infirmary, no more human voices. Every form of resistance he attempted led to deeper isolation. The system By the second year of his sentence, Marcus Vellin had become a ghost in the truest sense. Not the feared legend who once ruled the underworld, but a hollow presence, drifting silently through the shadows of Blackridge Penitentiary. He no longer screamed. He no longer plotted. His defiance, once terrifying, had withered into numb silence. The man who had orchestrated citywide lockdowns and murdered without blinking, now sat still for hours, staring at the flickering light overhead. His mind, once a sharpened weapon, had dulled into something unrecognizable. In his final psychological evaluation, conducted through a glass wall with no physical contact, Dr. Ellis, the prison's clinical psychologist, described Marcus's condition as total psychological fracture. He showed signs of severe dissociation, memory gaps, and emotional flatlining. When asked his name, Marcus paused for a full minute before answering. When asked why he killed, he simply said, "I don't know anymore." And just like that, the ghost had broken. Marcus Vellin died 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days into his sentence. The cause was listed as cardiac arrest due to untreated hypertension. But those who knew the system understood the truth. He didn't die from illness. He died from isolation, from the crushing weight of silence and time, from a prison designed to erase a man's soul long before his body gave out. His death was announced quietly. No headlines, no press conference. A brief federal notice marked the end of his chapter. His body was cremated, unclaimed by family or associates. There was no funeral, no flowers, just ash scattered in an unmarked field outside the prison gates. But his story didn't end there. In the years that followed, Marcus's imprisonment at Blackridge sparked a nationwide debate. Not about his crimes, they were unforgivable, but about the nature of justice itself. Did society have the right to inflict punishment so harsh it stripped away not only a man's freedom, but his mind? Was justice about retribution or rehabilitation? Some argued that Marcus deserved every moment of suffering, that his death was justice served cold and clean, that monsters like him shouldn't be shown mercy. Others, however, questioned what it meant to treat even the worst criminals as less than human. They cited international laws on humane incarceration, psychological studies on the effects of sensory deprivation, and the ethical weight of operating prisons like Blackridge. In the end, Marcus Vellin's story became more than a tale of crime and punishment. It became a mirror held up to society, forcing people to ask hard questions. What do we become when we fight monsters with methods that blur the lines of humanity? Was Marcus's fate a triumph of justice, or a failure of it? And if a man like him could be broken, not by guilt, not by bullets, but by the system itself, what does that say about the power we place in prisons? The ghost is gone, but his shadow still lingers, etched not into alleyways or crime scenes, but into the conscience of a country.